Sometimes, the truth doesn't come in dramatic confessions. It slips out in patterns, silence, and seemingly harmless words that suddenly feel like gut punches when you're really paying attention. When a woman's loyalty begins to fade, she doesn't always show it in the obvious ways. Instead, it hides in her language, subtle shifts, quiet contradictions, and phrases that sound innocent, until they don't. And often, she's not lying to you. She's lying to herself. You're just caught in the fallout. This is Stoic 95, the space for men who don't settle for confusion, who seek clarity, strength, and emotional intelligence. If that's you, do yourself a favor, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon, so you're first in line when new content drops. Because today we're diving into 9 phrases a woman might say when she's emotionally checked out, pulling away, or even stepping out. And this isn't about paranoia. It's about staying awake. 1. I just want to be alone right now. There's a shift you feel before she ever says it. The text slowed down. Her energy softens, not in warmth, but in detachment. Then it comes, I just want to be alone right now. Once, she found comfort in your presence. Now, she seeks distance. And while it's tempting to interpret this as stress, burnout, or needing space to think, the truth is often quieter and more unsettling. When a woman suddenly withdraws without reason, it can be less about solitude and more about preparing space for someone else. Most men hear those words and rush to fix, to prove, to reassure. But a Stoic man doesn't chase uncertainty. He doesn't beg clarity from someone who's walking into fog. He observes. He respects her choice, not out of defeat, but out of discipline. You see, chasing her down, over-explaining yourself, asking what's wrong, again and again, only weakens your frame. The truth is, women rarely just disappear. They slowly stop showing up. And most men ignore those signs out of hope, denial, or love. But emotional silence speaks volumes if you know how to listen. Your job isn't to stop her from pulling away. It's to see if she returns after doing so. As the Stoics would say, what's outside your control, release with dignity. Don't fill the silence she's creating. Let it speak. Let it show you what you're really dealing with. Because your power isn't in trying to hold someone close. It's in holding yourself together when they let go. Insight. When someone steps back from your life, let them. Their absence will teach you what their presence never could. 2. I'm tired of the drama. You didn't come at her with anger. You didn't raise your voice or throw accusations. You simply brought up something that didn't sit right with you. Calmly, respectfully. But instead of listening, she throws it back at you. I'm tired of the drama. Suddenly, the problem isn't what happened. It's you for noticing. And that's the trap. When a woman starts labeling your clarity as chaos, it's not because you're being difficult. It's because you're seeing too clearly. Drama becomes a smokescreen, a way to avoid taking a hard look at her own actions. It's not your tone that unsettles her. It's your composure, your presence, your refusal to ignore the red flags she hoped you'd swallow. Most men back down at this moment. They apologize for things they didn't do. They start to question themselves, all in the name of keeping the peace. But peace without truth isn't peace. It's quiet submission. And silence bought at the cost of self-respect is the beginning of something darker, self-betrayal. The Stoic response isn't to fight or to plead. It's to see the shift for what it is and respond with controlled distance. You don't need to explain twice what you saw clearly once. Let her fear your awareness, not your anger. And remember, sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is to say nothing and leave the room with your dignity intact. 3. You're not the same anymore. She says it quietly, maybe even with a hint of sadness, but it lands like a blade. Not because it's true, but because it hits where you're most vulnerable, your identity. As a man, you've likely carried the weight, adapted, grown. Maybe you've become more disciplined, more focused, less reactive. That's what real growth looks like. But instead of recognizing your evolution, she frames it as a flaw. Why? Because your change reminds her of her own stagnation. When a woman begins to drift emotionally, she rarely owns it. It's easier for her to say you've changed than admit her feelings have. And most men, especially those who love deeply, miss it. They start to chase approval, shrink themselves to fit an older version of who they were, thinking it'll bring her back. It won't. What she's really saying is, you're no longer the version of you I could control. And that's the truth most ignore. You didn't change for the worse. You outgrew the story she was comfortable in. And that discomfort? It's hers to sit with, not yours to solve. A Stoic man doesn't argue with perception. He observes. He accepts what is. He continues forward with calm, controlled resolve. When she tells you, you're not the same, your only answer is silence and a steady walk toward the man you're still becoming. 4. I don't owe you an explanation. When she says, I don't owe you an explanation, most men hear independence. But what they're really witnessing is a quiet shift. One that's easy to ignore when you're in love, invested, or simply afraid to face the truth. You notice her phone is always face down. Her schedule starts filling with vague commitments. You ask a simple question, and suddenly you're the one being interrogated. A man caught in denial will tell himself it's nothing, that she's just busy, that she deserves her space. And she does, everyone does. But there's a difference between space and secrecy. Respect shows itself in openness. When someone values you, explanations aren't a burden. They're offered freely, out of care, not obligation. A Stoic man doesn't react with accusations or begging. He doesn't spiral into paranoia or emotional outbursts. He pays attention. He watches, because silence speaks. And it often says more than any forced answer could. A woman who still values the relationship won't hide behind locked screens or ambiguous nights out. She won't weaponize privacy to avoid accountability. So when she draws that line, when she tells you she owes you nothing, you don't argue. You don't chase. You recognize it for what it is, the beginning of distance. And you respond with, what makes you a man of principle, clarity, calm, and withdrawal of your energy? Sometimes the strongest move isn't to fight for explanations. It's to let silence reveal the truth you've been avoiding. A Stoic man never fears the truth. He just refuses to pretend it isn't there. 5. I feel like we're just roommates. When she tells you, I feel like we're just roommates, it's more than just a complaint. It's a signal. She's not only pointing to distance between you two, she's preparing the ground for her eventual departure. This phrase is rarely a sudden thought. It's the echo of weeks, sometimes months, of emotional withdrawal that you likely missed or chose to ignore out of love, hope, or denial. Most men hear it and immediately try to fix the problem, chasing reassurance or explanations, desperate to reclaim what's already slipping away. But the truth is, you can't force connection where it no longer exists. This is a moment for you to step back with quiet strength, not panic. It's a test of your self-respect and your ability to accept reality without losing your center. Instead of trying to fill the silence with promises or excuses, maintain your calm. Let her words be a reminder that your value doesn't depend on her presence or approval. A wise man understands that some separations begin long before they become visible, and he meets them with dignity, not desperation. As Marcus Aurelius taught, if someone is able to show you that they are not trustworthy, believe them the first time. Hold your silence, hold your frame, and let your actions speak louder than any words ever could. 6. It's not about you, it's about me. When she says, it's not about you, it's about me, what she's really doing is stepping away without having to explain why. It sounds thoughtful, even humble, but more often than not, it's a gentle way to soften the blow of distance she's already created. You might feel confused because this phrase doesn't accuse you or blame you outright. It shifts the weight onto her, making it easier for her to avoid the harder truth. She's emotionally checked out or has invested herself somewhere else. Most men, caught in denial or blinded by love, hear those words and try to fix the problem, to convince her otherwise, hoping she'll return. But true strength isn't in arguing against uncertainty or pleading for clarity where none exists. A Stoic understands that when words become vague and feelings fade, the only thing left to control is his own response. You don't chase explanations. You watch the silence that follows. You don't argue. You preserve your dignity. The wise man accepts the reality without resentment and channels his energy into himself. Remember, the man who respects himself above all else is never lost in someone else's confusion. Your power lies in calm observation and measured withdrawal. Sometimes the loudest statement is made in silence. 7. Can I have guy friends without you freaking out? When she says, "Can I have guy friends without you freaking out?" it sounds reasonable on the surface. But pause and listen closely. This phrase often comes up the moment you raise a quiet concern. Maybe it's a message at midnight or a name you've heard too often. Suddenly, you're painted as the insecure one, the jealous partner, the problem. Most men let this slide because they want to believe in her, because love dulls their senses and denial softens the edges of reality. But trust is not blind submission. Trust is something you build through consistent honesty and respect. If she reacts defensively to your calm intuition, she isn't defending a friendship, she's shielding a secret. Think of trust like clear water. If there's nothing dirty beneath, it flows freely and transparently. But if it's murky, it hides what you're not meant to see. When you feel this defensiveness, it's a signal, not an accusation. Your job is not to argue or demand explanations. Your job is to keep your frame steady, quiet, observant, and unshaken. As Marcus Aurelius taught, if someone does wrong, it is because they are mistaken, but your power is in how you respond. You don't lose yourself trying to control her truths. Instead, maintain your silence, preserve your self-respect, and let your calm presence be your strongest answer. True power lies in restraint, not in reaction. 8. I need to find myself. When she tells you she needs to find herself, it's often a sign that the space between you is growing wider before she even admits it. Most men hear those words and dismiss them out of love or hope, convincing themselves it's just a phase, a moment of confusion she'll work through. But beneath that phrase lies something more uncomfortable, a quiet testing of other paths, other people, without the courage to own it openly. As a Stoic man, you understand that clinging or pleading won't tether her back. It only fractures your dignity and weakens your foundation. Real strength is knowing when to hold firm in your own worth and when to let go without bitterness. Because a woman who truly respects and values you won't need to lose you in order to find herself. She grows with you, not away from you. Your power doesn't come from forcing presence. It comes from commanding your silence, guarding your peace, and maintaining control over your inner world. As Marcus Aurelius reminded us, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. So, when she walks away with that phrase, don't chase. Stand steady, maintain your calm, and let your absence speak louder than any desperate word. In that silence, your true value is revealed, and that is the unshakable path of the Stoic man. 9. You should be with someone who makes you happy. Listen carefully when she says, "You should be with someone who makes you happy." On the surface, it sounds like concern, a soft and caring phrase meant to soothe your doubts. But beneath that calm lies something far more painful, an exit wound carefully disguised as kindness. This isn't her offering support, it's her way of letting go. Her guilt has grown louder than her love, and her heart is no longer present, even if her body still is. Most men, caught between denial and hope, ignore this shift. They interpret the words as temporary doubt, something to be fixed with more effort or affection. But you must understand that this phrase signals a quiet surrender. Her conscience is breaking the bond before her courage finds the strength to speak plainly. There's no anger here, no need for arguments or desperate explanations. The wise man listens without reaction, accepting the truth without resistance. Your power lies in this moment of calm. Control your emotions, honor your self-respect, and embrace silence. Because the man who refuses to chase what no longer belongs to him preserves his dignity and clears space for what is truly worthy. As Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Your response defines you. Conclusion: not every word she says is a sign of betrayal. Sometimes it's just noise, distractions to cloud your judgment or soften the hard truths you don't want to face. But patterns? Patterns never lie. When the same phrases repeat, when the tone shifts, when actions no longer align with words, that's the reality you must see clearly. Most men, blinded by love or denial, miss these subtle signals. They panic, they chase, they beg for answers. That will never come. But you're different. You don't react to every tremor. You stand unmoved when the ground beneath you shakes. Because a Stoic man understands that fear of betrayal weakens the soul. True strength lies in embracing the uncomfortable truth without losing your composure. You don't need to prove your worth to anyone who doubts it. You maintain your frame in silence, knowing that your value is not dictated by another's loyalty, but by your own discipline. As Marcus Aurelius said, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." In this stillness, in this quiet refusal to be dragged into chaos, you reclaim your power. You don't demand explanations. You don't seek validation. You simply observe, protect your peace, and keep your integrity intact. Because the man who remains steady when the world tries to shake him, that is the man who commands respect, not just from others, but from himself.